Today we will discuss how to read texts and answer the accompanying questions. I'll show you my approach to a text. Before I actually do any reading of the text itself, I start by reading the title, looking at the writers, any pictures, source, and, if there are any, subheadings. This helps me establish the topic of the text and activates previous knowledge of the subject, which can help me in understanding the text better. Judging from the title, I think that the text will deal with power, and looking at the picture, a vector of a famous statue, the thinker, I believe that it will be about philosophy as well. Then I read the first question. This question asks for information from the entire text. As the question requires me to find the first paragraph where a negative opinion about studying philosophy is given for the first time, I decide to check this per paragraph while answering the other questions. This not only saves me time in reading, but also keeps me from using information from the rest of the text for questions where that information is not yet relevant. I then read the second question. It specifically asks for information from the second paragraph. I highlight this part of the text just to keep my attention focused on the part of the text that is absolutely necessary for this question. I also add the first paragraph to know what the text is about. After reading the question, I read the required bit of text.
Recently, the financier Bill Miller donated $75 million to the study of philosophy at Johns Hopkins University. The size of the gift made headlines, but few stopped to remark on the other surprise in the story. That someone who studied philosophy went on to create a fortune estimated at about $1 billion, and thought this study valuable enough to encourage others to do the same. Mr. Miller is anomalous, obviously. If you really want to understand how to create an enormous fortune from nothing, you should look to someone like George Soros, who studied philosophy. Or consider billionaire investor George Icahn, who resigned last year as an advisor to Donald Trump over potential conflicts of interest. He graduated from Princeton with a thesis on the problem of formulating an adequate explication of the empiricist criterion of meaning. Another philosopher. Clearly, not all philosophers are moral philosophers, but they know how to think.
Having read this, I go back to the question. In order to answer it, I need to know what the word anomalous means, as well as the words given as the multiple choice answers. Anomalous means abnormaal, concerned, bezorgd, ironic, ironisch, reproachful, verwijtend, tactless, tactloos, and trivial, onbelangrijk. In this case, it is also important to know the meaning of the word ironisch. The definition of irony is the expression of one's meaning by using language that normally signifies the opposite, typically for humorous or emphatic effect. Knowing all of this makes me believe that answer B is the correct answer. The statement given states that Mr. Miller, a wealthy philosopher, as we learned in paragraph 1, is anomalous. In other words, it is not normal for philosophers to be this wealthy. The irony can be found in two phrases. Who studied philosophy, and another philosopher. This means that there are more wealthy philosophers, which debunks the statement. It is an exaggeration signifying the opposite of what is the case. Mind you, correct answers can often be found near signaling words or colons. In this case, there is a colon in front of one of the phrases that indicates the irony. I therefore go with answer B. This paragraph is positive about philosophy, so this is not the answer to the first question. I then continue with the third question for this text, which is about paragraph 3. Again, I highlight the part of the text that I need for this question. I follow this up by reading the required bit of text.
The brain is like any other muscle. Working it makes it stronger, faster, more flexible. Being able to hypothesize, think conditionally, and reason inductively as well as deductively are all features of the theoretical training that goes on in good humanities departments. And not only there. The most advanced work in mathematics moves away from real numbers toward imaginary and irrational numbers. That's where the difficult thinking occurs, in the realm of the imaginary, which is by no means antithetical to the logical.
Having read this, I go back to the question and read the options to choose from. I don't think that A is the answer because I can't find anything to prove that humanities are more demanding. I don't think that B is the answer as nothing is said about academic research. I don't think that C is the answer as the text states the opposite: creative inclinations and academic reasoning go well together. One doesn't exclude the other. I do think that D could be the answer as I think I can support this with a bit from the text. Being able to hypothesize, think conditionally and reason deductively are all features of the theoretical training that goes on in good humanities departments. And not only there, of which "and" is a signaling word, shows that it goes on in other departments as well. In the sentence that follows, we read that this is also the case in mathematics, which is one of the sciences. I decide to go with answer D. Again, this paragraph is positive about philosophy, so this is not the answer to the first question. The next question requires me to fill the gap in the text. In order to fill the gap, I need to know what all the options mean. In this case, I believe that the words continental, detrimental and dichotomy might cause problems. Continental is Europees vasteland. Detrimental is nadelig, and dichotomy means tweedeling. With gap questions, you should not only read the sentence with the gap, but also a bit before and or after it. In this case, I read the sentence with the gap with a bit of text that follows.
The division between the arts and the sciences is itself. The word art borrows from the Old French for method or knowledge. The word science also comes from the Old French for knowledge.
Looking at the words I can choose from, I don't believe that A is the answer, as I can't find anything that hints at initiatives. I don't think that B is the answer either, since neither the sentence with the gap nor the ones that follow deal with the results. I keep C open as an option as a possible answer. I don't think that D is the answer, as I don't read about a cause that has consequences. I decide to choose for option C because that is the only one that I can support with a bit of text. In the sentence with the gap, the word division is already an indication, as that means verdeling. The two sentences that follow show why it is a false division, as both words are derived from French for the word knowledge. A word that signals this similarity between art and science is also. Again, this paragraph is positive about philosophy, so this is not the answer to the first question. For the next question, I need to read paragraph 5. I read the question, highlight the paragraph, and then read the required bit of text.
As robots take over routine jobs, we will need people who can think creatively, imaginatively, logically, and laterally. Acquiring a narrow skill set of the kind society increasingly demands will, in fact, leave students not equipped for the future, but vulnerable to it. This, however, appears not to be the view of the UK government. Robert Halfon, former Minister of State for Education, announced this week that all courses should be about high-skilled employability. He added, if someone wants to do medieval history, that's fine, but all the incentives from government and so on should go to the areas the country needs and will bring the most benefit. We are endlessly told that humanities degrees are useless. Why study the past? Mostly because that's all we've got. You can't actually study the future. You can only imagine it.
Having read the paragraph, I think that C is the correct answer. I think that A is incorrect as there is no mention of financing studies in this part of the text. I believe that B is incorrect as it refers to the first sentence of the paragraph, but in that sentence the opposite is stated. We need people who are able to think. I also think that D is incorrect. Even though the text deals with robots taking over jobs, nothing is said that technology will end certain types of courses. I can support my choice for answer C with a phrase from the text. The sentence, acquiring a, up to and including to it, shows that limiting people's skills, the opposite of proper academic training, will leave people unequipped for the changes in society. The first part of the sentence shows what will not happen if there is a lack of proper academic training, whereas the second part shows what will happen. This contrast is indicated using the signaling word but. I see that this is the first paragraph with a negative opinion about studying philosophy. The most convincing sentence for me is the one that reads, "We are endlessly told that humanities are useless. Philosophy is part of humanities and therefore considered useless by some. I therefore write down 5 as my answer to the first question." For the final question, I need to read paragraph 6, 7, and 8. I first read paragraph 6 to see whether the sentences from that paragraph have a mocking tone or not.
Mr. Halfon himself must have studied something useful to become an MP. Indeed he did. Politics. Emmanuel Macron, French president, also studied philosophy, and likes to quote it too. PPE, the degree taken by scores of leading British politicians over the last 50 years, stands for Philosophy, Politics and Economics.
I think the first sentence requires the answer "well." I sense an undertone of sarcasm. This stems from the phrase "must have studied something useful." When comparing this to the tone of the text and the opinion of the writer, it is clear that they do not mean this. This is furthermore enhanced with the second part where the writer states, "Indeed he did. Politics." The phrasing of these sentences show that the writer believes a study in politics is not useful. The second sentence, in my opinion, requires the answer "niet." The sentence is literally an explanation of what PPE stands for, and therefore doesn't have a mocking tone. I then read paragraph 7.
Angela Merkel, Germany's Chancellor, may seem an exception, with a PhD in quantum chemistry. Yet studying quantum anything is mostly theoretical by definition. So the distinction is not between useful and useless degrees, but between narrow skill-based training and theoretical, independent, evidence-based thinking. Even Mr. Trump got an economics degree, although he chose a business school that offers a useful major in real estate studies. With all due respect to real estate studies, Mr. Trump does not strike most people as very well educated.
I think the third statement should be answered with "niet." Just as with the previous statement, it provides factual information. I continue reading.
The conclusion doesn't require a philosophy degree. If you want to get a job, study something useful. If you want to run the world, get a liberal education.
The tone of the entire paragraph is sarcastic. This is for me reason to answer this sentence with "wel." The fact that the writer states that you don't need a degree, in this case a philosophy degree, to come to this conclusion is mocking in tone. Checking my answers, I find that I've answered all of them correctly. If I hadn't, my next step would be to circle all the correct answers to find phrases in the text to support these answers, as doing this would help me further along in the development of my reading skills. Now you try.